Chapter 19, October 13, 1963. Ever since Delilah gave up jumping double dutch, she's taken up beauty. I don't mean just thinking about it and talking about it. I mean really working at it. Just this morning, Delilah's cousin Bessie gave her some Dr. Fred Palmer's skin whitener, so Delilah has it in her mind that I need a new look. Here we are sitting on her front steps. She opens the jar of cream and dips her pinky in. It's got to last me till I get to New York and make my own money, she says, and rubs one tiny drop into each of my cheeks. Even this little bit should help. Bessie always also let Delilah borrow a plastic case with a rainbow of eyeshadows in it. Now Delilah holds the case up to my face to figure out which color matches my brown eyes best. You've got blue tones in your skin, she tells me. No, I'm brown, I say. You don't understand, she says and laughs. You've got cool blue tones and I've got warm red ones. She's still explaining the whole theory when out of the corner of my cool eyeball I catch sight of Reverend Walker harumphing down the lane. Look, I say and point. There's a large parcel of folks gathered round him, and one thing's clear. Something juicy's going down. You've got to let me do it later, Delilah said. It'll bring out your features. Only if you make me as pretty as a speckled pup, I tell her. I'll try, she says. Truth be told, I doubt any makeup can turn me into a speckled pup, but I still want Delilah to fix my eyes. I hate the way they look so plain like the rest of me, but I must admit they're awful good for seeing. Delilah and me join our neighbors in the lane. Since church let out just an hour ago, you'd think the Reverend would be tired of talking. But that's not the way it's fixing to be. Praise Jesus, he says. He holds a large cardboard poster in his hands. The second I see it, I know exactly what this ruckus is about. A few days back, I was making Ralphie his favorite treat in the Tate's kitchen while Mrs. Tate and her friends were drawing up posters in the living room. I held Ralphie on my hip as I stirred the pot of applesauce on the stove and listened to them talk. Between his new shop in Muscatine County and his poor mama in Florida, Mr. Mudge hasn't made it back to Cuckoo for 3 weeks, Mrs. Worth said. He gave me the garden keys. He said with the grand opening scheduled for early November, there's no way he'll make it back to town for the picking. What a shame, Miss Springer chirped. She sure didn't sound sorry Mr. Mudge wouldn't make it to the picking. Well, at least the garden was laid by before he left, Miss Springer said. After that, there's nothing to do but wait for everything to grow anyhow. Well, I stopped by the garden just yesterday, Mrs. Tate said. The corn lining the gate is taller than me. I couldn't see a thing past it. Then out of nowhere, Miss Springer asked, Have you heard of the rumors? What rumors? Mrs. Tate asked. About Mr. Adams' will, Mr. Springer said. I almost dropped poor Ralphie on the floor. Well, I was down at the very fine fabric shop the other day. Dorotha told me she overheard the girl who cleans the shop tell someone that in his will, old man Adams left half his garden to the Negroes, Miss Springer said. You can't be serious, Mrs. Worth said. Ralphie close to me with one hand, stirred the pot round and round with the other. I am serious, Miss Springer replied, and knowing how that man felt in his old age, I can believe it's true. This is a community garden. It seems Mr. Adams wanted the whole Cuckoo community to participate. Well, if that didn't send Mrs. Worth into a tizzy. You don't know that, and I don't know that. Well, never know what Mr. Adams intended. By the time he wrote up his will, that salty old buzzard was nothing but a colored-loving cuckoo, Mrs. Worth said. Words fought inside my throat. They climbed all over each other trying to get out. I know what the will said. He left us the land, too. I could hear the words inside me screaming out over and over, but who was I to interrupt a white lady's conversation? My hands got so shaky, though, I had to seat Ralphie on the floor, and of course he went running out the open back door into the yard. I turned the knob on the burner to low and chased after him, so I didn't get to hear another word those ladies said. But I can tell you one thing, they sure had a good fight, the three of them, before they finished drawing up their posters. Now Reverend Walker holds one and shouts, We need to be moving that movement that's brewing in Birmingham, that movement that's mixing life upside down in Jackson. We need to be moving it right here to Cuckoo. The Reverend turns the sign around so we can see it. Then he reads out loud, The Cuckoo Garden Club invites you to a picking party, Tuesday, sunrise, free vegetables, bring sacks. He points to the purple writing at the bottom of the sign and reads, P.S. Negroes invited to pick at noon. This garden's supposed to be for everyone, Mrs. Montgomery shouts. I hear you, says the Reverend. What are you saying? Brother Babcock asks. I'm saying our empty bellies can go growling for another 1,000 years. We always got on by less than nothing. However, the Reverend raises a finger in the air, we can't go hungering for our dignity one more day. We're not going to pick at noon to gather no scraps. And it's clear that at long last the Reverend's finished thinking about the garden. He actually does have a plan. We're going at the crack of dawn just like every other Cuckooian, he says. Praise the Lord, yells Delilah. I reckon she belongs in the amen corner. And dog my cat, suddenly she's all about that picking. I'll do your eyes later, she tells me. Well, that's fine with me. I don't need any more color on my eyes. I've got all the color I need right in front of them. I'm seeing blue and red stars. I'm so angry about this garden. We need to do this for Emmett Till, the Reverend shouts, and for Medgar Evers, and for the 4 young girls murdered last month in Birmingham. Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, and Addie Mae Collins. And as for Elias Pickett, our very own son, wherever he may be. I thought of Emmett. I thought of Medgar. I've thought of those 4 girls, one my age, one named Addie like me. And Lord knows I've thought about my brother. But to think all of them at the same time, Elias along with the dead, it's just too much. Too much to bear. I stumble away from the crowd at the edge of the lane, but the Reverend's word boom across the dirt straight to me. There comes a time when a man's dignity is worth more than his life. Oh Lord, this is our time. I know the Reverend's right. We can't just sit by and let them steal what's ours. They've taken our land. They've chased my brother away. They've taken too many lives. And even if I get beaten or put to jail, it doesn't matter. I'm ready to fight. Reverend Walker charges down the lane. Most of the men follow. As usual, they're going to sort things out without us ladies and children, so Delilah and me hurry on over to my porch to sit beside our mamas. No doubt they're fretful as we are, and I reckon we could all lean on each other after what we just heard. But as soon as I settle on the step, I'm sorry I'm there. That's because Mama and Mrs. Montgomery, they're shaking their tails at each other about whether we should go to the picking or not. Mama says, there's no way for us to show up for the picking at sunrise without infuriating the white folk. If we do that, we might as well shoot ourselves, because that's what happens when you make white folk think twice before they even think once. If we go, we'll get ourselves killed. Mrs. Montgomery turns to me and says, looks like your mama's turned into Eartha Kitt. I sure wish Mama looked like a beautiful actress, but right about now, her eyebrows are knitted together and the circles under her eyes look like mud puddles. I hate to say it, but Mama doesn't look like Eartha Kitt at all, so I'm not sure what Mrs. Montgomery's talking about. But now Mrs. Montgomery says to Mama, no need for the drama, Eartha. We should show up, but not till noon. That way we're taking up good on the offer, but not losing out on the food we need. But Mama doesn't like Mrs. Montgomery's teasing. Her bottom lip quivers just like mine. We're not going, she says. We can't go. Not you, not me, none of us. Sunrise, noon, the hour don't matter. Truth be told, sometimes Mrs. Montgomery takes things one step too far. Even though she and Mama, they're the best of friends, sometimes she hurts Mama real bad. Since when can a picket afford to skip out on a free sack of beans, Mrs. Montgomery asks. I reckon that does it. Mama stands right up, hand on her hip. Why don't you bring out the lamb chops on a regular basis neither, she says and storms inside. At dinner, Mama's still steaming. She yanks the macaroni and cheese from the oven. She ain't got no sense about how to protect her family, she says, more to the food than to anyone. It seems Mama's cooked up an extra special meal just to prove our family's got more than enough to eat. Uncle Bump says. I want to tell Mama that truth be told, I reckon Mrs. Montgomery's right. We should be at that picking. What's ours is ours. I want to tell her that Elias wouldn't like to see her all scared, that Elias would want her to fight for our rights. But right about now, Mama's just a deer collapsing in the forest to lick her wounds, and nothing I say about the picking will do anything but hurt her more. So I do what we pickets do best. I change the subject. Well, Mama, I say, and shovel in another spoonful of macaroni and cheese. This sure is scrumptious. But what do you know? In the middle of my compliments, Mama goes and switches the subject right back. She stares at Uncle Bump. You ain't going, I ain't going, and you, Addie Ann, she says, you ain't going to that picking neither. Seeing Mama so scared scares me. I reckon ever since Elias left, her age is speeding up faster than the days and years. And one thing's clear, Mom isn't about to let any more danger destroy our family, no matter how much dignity it might cost. Excuse me, she says. The instant she leaves the table, I get a twisty feeling in my belly. No one has to say my brother's name for us to know he's all she can think about. Yesterday, Mama met up with the Reverend, and even he had to admit Elias might be in God's hands. I don't know why the Reverend thinks the more days my brother's gone, the more evidence he's never coming back, but I reckon it's like Mrs. Jack says. Grown-ups only believe what they see in front of their eyes. If they don't see something, he isn't there. So even though the Reverend's a spiritual man, he can't help it. He's still a grown-up. Chapter 20. October 15, 1963, dawn. From my seat on the swing, I see the skies the soft blue it only turns fall mornings. A few stars still sparkle. And right about now, the world seems half asleep, stuck in a place where everything's all right, and everyone who should be in it is. Past the oak leaves, I watch folks stroll down the lane, wiping sleep from their eyes. Most every one of them is off to church, where they're going to meet up before the picking. They're following Reverend Walker's plan, showing up to pick at dawn, even though us Negroes weren't invited till noon. No one seems to notice me out here on my swing. No one except Delilah. She's wearing her dress for courage, the orange one with the yellow iris down the back. You coming, she asks, and walks into the yard. Of course, I'm more than dying to go to that picking and we'll see what the fuss is about. I want to see what Mrs. Tate's been planning for months. I want to know what stand the Reverend will take, and if he'll get the white folk to give us any kind of respect. But if I go to that garden picking and Mama hears of it, I'll never see daylight again. Gotta go to school, I said, but here's Delilah fixing her eyes on something bigger than her own appearance and getting all high and mighty about it, too. You should come, she says. It's the right thing to do. And I can't believe it. Delilah Montgomery telling me, Addie Ann Pickett, the right thing to do? I push my feet against the ground to set the swing in motion. You're just jealous I get to walk all the way with Cool Breeze, I tell her. Thrills, chills, and charges, she says, and throws back her shoulders. Her pecan eyes roast with determination. Then she turns around and folds into the wave of folk marching down the lane. I want to jump off the swing and run after her, but Mama would boil up if she found out I even thought about going to the garden picking. More neighbors shuffle by till at long last Cool Breeze saunters into the yard looking fine as ever. Well, come on, he calls and walks away. I grab my school bag from beside the swing and race to catch up. But when I reach him, Cool Breeze seems like he's concentrating on something real important. Together, we rush down Cuckoo Lane. As usual, we don't toss a word between us. But the second we turn to the highway, Cool Breeze pushes the mulberry branches out of the way and steps into the bush. Before I know what's happening, his long fingers are digging into the crook of my arm. And here I am in the bush, too, my face right near his. I smell ginger on his breath. I take in his long lashes. My arms and legs buzz, and all of a sudden it's clear. The silence between us as we walk to school each day isn't empty silence. No, sir, it's full. Full silence, overflowing with yearning, desire, and love. Now I'm tingly all over. Cool breeze leans towards me. I pucker up, and in the humid air I relish the kiss to come. My heart flutters like a sheet on a drying line. It all happens so fast. I think so many thoughts at once, feel everything all at the same time. Soon we'll kiss, then we'll walk hand in hand. One day we'll get married. But all of a sudden his lips screech to a halt beside my ear. I'm going to the picking, he whispers. My dream, it shatters like the honey jar in the corner store lot. You can't tell anyone at school where I'm at, he says. I suffer my humiliation among the mulberry branches. Not only doesn't Cool Breeze kiss me, but now he's made me late. And being late for class at West Thunder Creek Junior High School is nothing like being late at Acorn Elementary. My chest tightens in a double panic. It'll be a sight, he says and smiles. With the rumors floating, you know, I can't miss that. Then he says, why don't you come too? I pull my school bag over my shoulder. I can't. My mom would find out. Now, how's she going to find out? So many folks will be there. They think it's odd if you're not there. Well, I've got to admit, Cool Breeze Huddleston can sure think out a problem. He's got a point. If no one from my whole family goes to the picking, folks will wonder whether us pickets are loyal to the cause. And right about now, we can't afford to have anyone thinking about that. I nod to myself and Cool Breeze can see I'm coming along. But then I hit a rock in my thinking. A rock so big it's blocking the road and I can't see any way over it. What about Mrs. Jacks, I ask. She's going to rip you up, and me too if we skip out. There's no explaining to Mrs. Jacks why you're late or why your homework's only part finished or why you slumped down at your desk. I can hear her saying it right now. I went to 16 years of school. That's more years than any of you have been singing to the Lord. And I never missed a day. Learning's too precious to give up 1 minute for something silly like your stomach aching or goblins sneaking out your nose. I push aside the branches and climb out the thicket. Cool Breeze follows. By the way, he's still trying to convince me. I reckon he really does want me to go to the picking with him. And if I do, that kiss might land on my lips by the end of the day. A school bus rushes down the highway. As usual, a few white students yell something nasty out the window. No matter how many times it happens, their taunting voices still make me want to scream. Do as you like, he says, but trust me, even if Mrs. Jacks does find out, she'll be nothing but proud when we tell her we stood up for ourselves. Heck, he says and laughs. She's probably going to make us give a report to the class so we can be examples to others. It's true. Mrs. Jacks always said we need to dream bigger and fight harder than everyone else just because we're Negroes. Maybe Cool Breeze is right. Maybe she'll put us up in front of the class. Now, wouldn't that be something? When Elias was in her class, Mrs. Jacks asked him to teach the other students how to give a persuasive speech. She said Elias could orate just like Frederick Douglass. Mama cried. She was too proud for him. She was so proud of him for that. We'll take the back path to the church so your mama won't see, Cool Breeze says. Of course, he doesn't have to worry about his mama finding out because he says she's gone to Sunflower for the day to take care of her sick sister. And he sure doesn't need to worry about his daddy finding out because he split when Cool Breeze was in first grade. You're already late for school anyhow, he says. Then he takes off running down the path through the woods. I haven't had time to make up my whole mind about it, but I figure Cool Breeze, he's smarter than me. So I push the branches out of the way and tear down the path after him. My school bag thumps against my hip. By the time we turn off to First Baptist, I've got to hunch over, hands on my knees to rest. Cool Breeze huffs and puffs too, but he stands up straight like our sprint was nothing. Here, he says, give me your bag. I hand over my school bag and Cool Breeze sets it down beside his in a ditch. No one will know we're supposed to be at school at all, he says. I smile, thinking how smart he is, how he's seeing all the details, how he's taking care of me. Then the two of us go on inside the church and stand in the back. If I didn't know better, I would have thought it was the Easter service. There's not an empty pew in the place. By the look of things, lots of kids from Acorn Elementary are missing class today. Why, they're sitting right with their parents. Up front, the Reverend bellows. Each word swells in his belly, then shimmies across his tongue. This past spring, the young Negroes of Birmingham stood up when they marched for equality. 6, 12, 16 years old. Some were bitten by police dogs. Some were toppled by the force of fire hoses. But their actions helped desegregate Birmingham's downtown stores. And I know segregate means to separate, so desegregate must means to mix back together again. I whisper that word, desegregate, and it tickles the roof of my mouth. In Jackson, the Reverend says, although it was against the law, Negro college students stood by trying to eat at a white lunch counter while white customers threw ketchup on them and beat them bloody. And even your little old Reverend here stood up this summer when he marched on the nation's capital and urged Congress to pass the President's Civil Rights Bill. And I still can't believe that our own very own Reverend Walker went all the way to the nation's capital on a bus and told our country's president what he ought to do. One thing's clear, our Reverend's come back a changed man. At long last, his name fits him like a Sunday suit because now Reverend Walker doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He wants to get up and fight. Of course, he won't fight with weapons, only wisdom and courage. It's what Martin Luther King Jr. calls nonviolent resistance. Cuckoo may not be a big city, and Dr. King may never stop at our door, but that doesn't mean we're going to sit by and watch while white folks steal our dignity right out of our hands, the Reverend says. He shuts his eyes, rocks on his heels, and prays the Lord will watch over us. After all that, he picks up something from behind the pulpit and carries it down the center aisle. When he passes, I see he's got a long metal stick in his hand. What's that? I ask Cool Breeze. A crowbar, he tells me. The whole lot of us follow the Reverend out the church door. Elmira hands us a picking sack. Well, why does he need a crowbar? I ask Cool Breeze. Beats me, he says. Then we all trek down the Magnolia Row, and I wonder if joining the garden picking will be the sorriest thing I've ever done in my life. But if I tell this to Cool Breeze, he'll think I'm nothing but a nervous Nelly. And I know Cool Breeze, he's impressed I'm here. So I walk on, my heart hammering in my chest, my soul praying the white folks won't fire on us. When we get to the tall fence that borders Old Man Adams' farm, Reverend Walker sets the crowbar down in the grass. Then he weaves his fingers together and tells Cool Breeze to place a foot inside his clasped hands. While Cool Breeze steps up and hoists himself over the fence, folks beside me hold hands and whisper. I hear only pieces of whispers. Dead. The whispers get stuck in my hair. Fight. They wrap around my neck. Hours. The whispers cut off my breath, and the grass moves, and the Reverend fades, and the people fall, and I can't breathe, and the whispers and the breath are short and fast, and I'm alone. Here alone. And I won't call Flapjack. This is my mess, not his. Then there's sunlight. Sunlight bouncing off the silver crowbar back in the Reverend's hand. Heads up, the Reverend shouts and throws the crowbar over the fence. The sunlight on the crowbar flying over the fence covers me in an arc of glitter. Yellow and orange glitter. I close my eyes, but I'm not under the sheet. I'm not in bed. Breathe, I tell myself, breathe. The long strand of whispers breaks off my neck, breaks apart into a thousand tiny butterflies. The butterflies fly away over the fence, into the garden. Breathe. My belly gets full of sunlight, full of breath. I'm not here, not beside the fence, not going to the picking. I'm above myself, looking down at that river flowing, that river rushing over rocks, rushing fast, a force without beginning or end, a force that can't be broken. I'm above the river, looking down on it, watching sunlight sparkle on the water surface. Gooseflesh watches over me. I hear him. I don't see him. I hear him. Stand up, my brother says, stand up. By the time I open my eyes again, I don't hear whispers at all. It's quiet, and I don't hear my breath alone. I hear everyone breathing hard together. Even though I'm terrified to be here at this picking for one whole minute, I'm sure I'm doing the right thing. I know Elias, he's proud, and now that Cool Breeze has followed the Reverend's instructions, taken out the nails, and removed a section of the fence, we all crawl through before the lot of us to get to chicken and run back home. We march single file down the edge of the field between a wall of sky-high corn and the tall wooden fence, dragging our empty sacks, singing, "We shall overcome." From the wavery sound of our voices, I can tell that everyone's frightened as me. When we get to the garden gate, we spread ourselves across the iron bars, another wall of corn at our backs. I see faces on the other side of the garden gate, the mayor's red cheeks, the sheriff's bulging neck, and Mrs. Tate's wide open mouth. And that's when the truth of the matter sends a chill right through me. We're inside the garden. The white folks, they're left out. Before Mrs. Tate can spot me, I take a step back and hide in the corn stalks. Although I can't see the Reverend, I hear his voice rumble as he shouts out to the white folks. We don't want your leftovers. When I hear the Reverend's words, I feel shimmery, like sunlight on steaming hot pavement. Here's the Reverend yelling to white folks about what's on our minds, and we all could die because of it. I reckon I never did think this picking thing through, because till an hour ago I was going to school like a good girl. And for all the Reverend's fighting talk, the mayor just chuckles like the sight of us inside the garden's nothing but a ridiculous joke. We're happy to welcome y'all at noon, the mayor says. When nothing's left but rotten cabbage, the Reverend shouts. All of a sudden, I see it plain and clear. Mama's smarter than all of us fools put together, and now I'm cracking mad I was dumb enough to skip school and get caught up in this dangerous mess. I glimpse out from my hiding spot in the stalks. Mrs. Worth uses the keys to unlock the garden gate. Then the sheriff pulls his pistol from his holster with one hand and pushes open the garden gate with the other to let the white pickers through. Mrs. Worth crosses into the garden first. As soon as she does, she crinkles up her nose and shouts to us Negroes, "Didn't you read the sign? You're not invited to pick till noon." When she yells, the daisies on the top of her sun hat shake, but not half as much as I do. Then Mrs. Worth turns to the sheriff and says, "Oh my, I plumb forgot. Colors can't read." After the white folks push aside the cornstalks and stomp into the garden, the Reverend blazes his own path into the rows. Cool Breeze grabs my waist and draws me in behind our Reverend. Then all of us stand at the garden's edge and watch the white pickers spread across the rows. It doesn't take but a minute before we hear the white children laugh awful loud. They're delighted to pick those collards and squash that should belong to us all, and I can't believe how unfair this is, that they're squealing with joy while we stand here and watch them steal what's ours. But soon the laughter fades, a scary silence surrounds us. That's when I look real close to the ground, and all of a sudden I realize why their giggles are gone. No one's ever seen such a field of horrors. Vines run everywhere, crisscrossing the rows, moving under and over the other plants, choking out the sun and the air, stealing the nourishment of the garden traps need to survive. Cucumber beetles and spider mites creep everywhere, and everything's mixed up crazy. Brown bud and squash litter the dirt like dead mice. "Check it out," Cool Breeze says. He holds up a cabbage the size of a plum. Mrs. Tate's at least 10 rows away from us, but she screams so loud we can't help but hear. "Land sakes," she yells, "the garden is ruined." One after the next, white pickers gasp with shock. The Reverend points to Magnolia Row, but no one needs to tell us Negroes that sticking around the garden is a bad idea. We know that wherever there's trouble for the white folks, there's trouble for us. So we all run out the garden through the missing piece of fence. Wouldn't you know it, on our way back to First Baptist, Delilah managed to catch up to Cool Breeze and me. As soon as the three of us squeeze into a pew, she nestles her head into his shoulder and tells him all about how scared she is. I want to be sick. I'm scared too, but I don't go sticking my head into other people's shoulders because of it.